Okay, so hello, I'm Marek, and currently I am a head researcher at AI University Partnership Hub. We have a new name for last 2 weeks, so I'm still not used to it. I'm working with AI for like 20 years, and the change of the scope, how AI is reflected, is really big in the last few years. I'm also in Linux for a quite long time. I have started to use Linux before kernel 1.2, so it was like late 90s, really long time ago. So today I would like to tell you a bit about AI and how it can be used in communities and some intro talk, but if you want to if you then want to talk about it a bit more, I'm free. So why we want to use AI? We want to increase our productivity. Then numbers are really changing across time, and also it changed across who is telling us these numbers. So if we want to talk that AI tools boost coding speed by 80%, it was paper by Anthropic. If we want to find out that AI coding assistants slow down the developers, then it's from MIT. We don't have a right way how to measure those things that are not replicable. And the very big issue is that in order to actively use AI tools for coding, you have to completely switch your workflow. And I was not able to do this yet. So perhaps it will take some time. People told me that like 3 to 6 months of 8 years of 8 hours a day is like something where the benefit really starts to appear. So what we cover into AI in coding or management, it's some basic assistants that we do not longer treat as AI. Those are things like auto-completion or grammar spelling. It's like normal thing currently. We have some tools where the AI takes much more activity, started from a guided development to things where there are people and AI at the same level. And then we start to move on to the places where we do not think about like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and into the space where we just do a vibe coding. So we tell, do this, and I don't care and know how to do this. It's like very interesting that the vibe coding as itself was developed by Andrej Karpathy, who is one of the leader of AI world. So not by someone who just want to do something easy, but someone who really knows what to do. And then at the last step, we have Agentic AI, where the entity that asks to create an application is no longer a human. So agent decides that in order to, we have to create a new application. And this brings a lot of new issues. The basic issue in large language model world is that they treat open source quite differently than us. What we usually listen that this is an open source model is really just open weight model. So in the open source model, we have some mostly smaller ones created by universities or some academia. We have all freedoms and rights that we have with the open source software. With the open weight models, they look like open source. You can download them, use it on your machine, you can modify them, distribute them, but not in every case. So there are some additional constraints that might or might not impact you or your partners. For example, if you are using the model Llama 3 by Meta, if you have more than 700 million of users per month, you have to ask for their approval. If you are that big, you have other issues, not this one. But if you want to use a multimodal family Llama 4, it's completely forbidden to use in European Union, even for personal and research, because of it is not clear who is responsible for such kind of models. And we have some other open weights models that are currently heavily used, like DeepSeek and Qwen from the East. And very often they have some additional constraints that are like not bad in a whole, but they are there because their regulation requires them to put it inside. So you are not allowed to use it for a military use, but this is a freedom that you should have according to open source. Also, there are a limitation about deep fakes and malware and other stuff that is like wrong by default, but we have to have those rights. And then we have a proprietary models, and the issue here is very interesting because they are no longer just a model. They are just whole systems that is a model inside, but there are multiple other things that can modify the answer, do some evaluation to find out if there are some racial issues or some other bias inside. So you don't have a control over it. If you remember last week, we have a lot of similar stuff with a Grok, large language models, where you ask if Elon Musk is stronger than the best boxer on the world, and answer, of course he is. And if he is wiser than Einstein, yes, he is. So that's not what LM get from the training data. It's something what is there somehow implemented. It is very interesting and important that if you have such model, you are forced to do such things because you have to follow various regulations, and it's very important to do those censorships modification as easy as possible. So some of my queries was taint as this on OpenAI, and it took them like 4 days to fix it. I was asking question in Slovak that was not invalid, but was shady a bit. So what we have to work with AI in open source as general. The licenses does not cover the things that cannot be copyrighted. We have this here from the very beginning. So things like unit tests, constants, they cannot be copyrighted by itself. So the licenses are ready for the AI stuff because currently in Europe and US, AI cannot be author of the content. So the output of large language model is not copyrightable unless you change it a lot or do some other things that we are not aware of currently. Under AI Act regulation, that is partially valid currently, there are some responsibilities for both the users and providers of large language models and other AI systems. There are some exceptions for open source models, but they do not apply to open weight models. So if you decide that you want to use Llama 3, which is quite a good model, you have to be sure that you are not the importer to the European Union, for example, and that the model have all those guard trails that are expected. The another issue is AI plagiarism. plagiarism. So what happened if the output of the large language model is the document that is already covered by copyright? This happened to OpenAI with the New York Times, and they have to pay a lot of money for this. It won't be an issue in a case that we will just have a knowledge of the information inside, but they were able to do it word by word. And the main things that AI Act put into this direction is a transparency. So if you are using AI, be honest, tell it, I am using AI for a brainstorming. I am using AI to find missing API or do some coding assistance. This is what is expected from you in the case that AI is not used for those like naive tasks like grammar spelling. In the open source world, we have multiple approaches currently. There is already a request for comment in Foreman, but what I see around is you should add the information that this code was created by or assisted by an OpenAI tools or Grok or anything else, and that's enough. There are other projects where the usage of AI is currently forbidden, like Kumu or NetBSD, but they said that this is now, and we are willing to do a modification in future when the legal issues will be much more clear. Another issue that we currently have with using AI in open source project is that people are using AI to find bugs in your code. And very often those bugs are not found properly, and they just take a lot of your time. So some projects like OpenSSL told that we don't want AI applicant bugs, but we have to distinguish between people who just type in that I want to find the bug in OpenSSL to startups like Hazel in Prague, who really creates a tool that find the multiple issues currently that are relevant. But they are like 80 people who are working on these projects, but that's how it works currently. What is currently a big deal is a developer certificate of origin, where you promise that you will follow those standards. And because AI is not able to sign the contract, AI should not be used in such projects. This was used before as well. It's not like because of AI, it's also because of software patents and other stuff. But that's a way how you can make sure that if there is a legal issue, you have a paper, I was aware of this issue and just someone misbehaved. Okay. And now I want to show you a video, just a short one.
And plays knight takes f6 check. White book a transatlantic flight to get the queen to the other side of the board and plays backwards pawn moves. That's kind of sickening.
Okay, so Okay, so this was to show you that if we have a complex issue that is not described in a text, but in some strange syntax, like in a chess, then the way how the large language model works is really struggling as a lot. So in a Foreman world, we have to decide if our situation is more like a programming or a management of the infrastructure. Because on the other side, we might end up like with the chess. Of course, this does not mean that we don't have AI systems that can play this game much better, even better than anyone on the planet. But those are not like the standard systems, they are different systems. So what we risk if we use AI? The main issue is we risk of invalid output. So if we are in the case that we completely understand what's going on and we can verify it, then it's perfect situation. If I don't want to read my son's homework in math in a grammar school, I believe AI that it will be good enough. Because I can take a look, if there is an issue, I can compare it and say, no, that's a completely different problem. Then sometimes we have a partial knowledge and a partial testing. So if I want AI to fix my grammar in English, I have some knowledge of English grammar. And I expect that I can say that this is completely wrong, but I'm not able to say this is better than the other version. But I'm okay with that. I don't care about the right answer. If I'm asking for a top 10 restaurant in Brno, I believe it will be like very similar, but a right answer. Then we have a type where we have a partial knowledge, but we have a safe verification. So I don't know what this is doing, but I know the system enough that I can tell this will not remove any data or destroy something. Be aware that if you are using AI tools heavily and there was no issue for last 20, 50 tasks, you might end up in the situation like me when I was changing the database structure in Snowflake, which has an SQL syntax, but with some small modification. So I just type it, copy it, and after that, I found out that instead of update table, there was create or replace table. So majority was okay, but the start was the thing that I lose all my data and I have to pick it from a backup. So the thing with the safe verification is if half of your cases fails, you will be watching it very closely. But if it will be like 1 or 2%, you will lose your focus. And then we have the worst issue when we have no knowledge and we are not able to verify it at all. So if I will ask for some medical questions, I just have to believe. But the question is, if this situation is so much worse against when I'm asking the expert. If I'm asking a doctor, I have to believe or ask another expert, but I'm in a not the better situation. Originally, I wished to talk more about agentic approach, but then I found out that the next session will be about agentic. So I moved it a bit, but so I will just take about some intro, so the later one can talk more deeply. So the major issue is that with REST API, we have endpoints that return structured data and do something on behind. But if you ever try to take a look on the REST API without documentation, sometimes it's easy to find out what's going on, and sometimes it's quite hard. So in the agentic world, we have a model context protocol that offers tools like actions, endpoints, do something, resources like files, database access, and other stuff. And we have a prompt template. So there are some templates that are ready for some use cases, and those prompts might be quite long. Currently, the major MCP server has a Rohlik, what is a grocery delivery, and you can ask if those food are lactose-free, for example, or if I can buy 20 of Coca-Cola or something like that. But it seems that the direct approach is very tricky even for them, because if I want to just say, buy me 5 milks, which milks if there are like 20 of different brands? So we have to talk and answer additional questions. The agents currently usually use architecture based on the microservices because it's easy. There is no a bigger issue with that. The problem is with the microservices. If you have a ton of models, you have to figure out how to make them together, how to resolve issues and other stuff. And what is one of the biggest pain with the agents is that usually the action took quite a long time. So it might take a day, week, or 5 minutes, and we don't know beforehand. We might have some expectations, but what if the database is not responding? Should we wait, or should we use a different approach? We don't know. And in case of some systems that are considered as high risk, for example, in IT security or in banks, we have to have a human in the loop who take a look on the system and can answer and respond to what's going on. In some cases, I believe it's like a bureaucracy. Because imagine that you are watching for fraud transactions on bank cards, credit cards. You have hundreds of transactions per second, and there should be a person who will say, this one is invalid. And that's not possible. And the very same situation is in the network filtering. There are some hints that there should be a human in the loop who will say, those packets are malicious in real time. That's hard to say. Okay. And so, but it can help us a lot in case that we will interconnect multiple systems. So the monitoring agent is watching for the anomalies that were obtained by someone else. It might be a rule-based system or AI system, it doesn't matter. And then it perceives the situation, and according to data from multiple MCP, it can find out those are the actions that I am able to do. I might not use any of them. I might use all of them in a different order with different arguments, but this dynamic workflow is what makes agentic world so promising. It is not as good as we wish today. We believe that 26, 27 might be the year of agentic AI. And then the MA executes the action, process the result, and with those new information, it can adapt the plan and do another step. If we want to do this now, we usually have some templates. If there is this kind of issue, I know that I will take a look here, 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 and so on. So this might help a lot. But unfortunately, in the majority of complex systems, those ways how you cover the most basic task are not implemented. They are not documented. You have them in your head, and if there is an associate, you will teach those stuff to him or her, and that's how the knowledge is progressing. It's not like that I will write a script that will do this job because that situation happens five times a year. If it's like 5 times a day, you will, but not if it's something like once monthly. Okay. So one of the idea is we have tickets, we have agent, we can get data from some central management, put those anomalies inside, and we can create some basic diagnostic on top of it and create an incident at the end. In this case, we might not be able to validate everything, but we are not able to break anything. But you can lose a lot of time when there will be hundreds of fake incidents. So be aware that you have to take a risk in AI currently. There will be some false responses, but it depends on if you are willing to take a risk and try to find a way how to get those information or processes more precise next time. We, as an AI partnership hub, we currently work with a lot of academia. So if you have anything, might be a feeling, might be an academic topic for them, we are able to discuss it. We already had multiple theses, like a bachelor and master thesis about Foreman. So that's a nice thing. And currently, AI has to be everywhere. So you have no choice. Thank you.